Hereditary.
Yeah. Let's get rolling. I want to make sure we stop in time for lunch. At the same time, we have some really amazing panelists today. And I want to make sure we have enough time to ask the questions that you probably all have. So first of all, let's just begin. Big thing, water. We can't live without it, and we have known this for centuries. Yet our modern world keeps forgetting the role water plays in not only human health, but the very ecosystems that surround us, that we depend on for sustenance, our physical and our mental health. My name is Martin Rydlo. I am one of the founding directors of the Escarpment Corridor Alliance. I'm one of the owners of Duncan Highlands Resort and a director of the nature-based not-for-profit healthwithnature.org. Today we have before us three amazing leaders who are passionate in their pursuit of water protection and improvement. Our discussion is inspired by the geospatial planning project the Escarpment Corridor Alliance commissioned Dobbin International to conduct in an effort to better understand the structure of the escarpment, its watersheds, and the most important ecological areas. The project has become an important building block in helping the ECA identify its areas of influence and potential nature corridors. The escarpment's waters are vital. A rich and unique mosaic of rivers, lakes, wetlands, headwaters, and watersheds. You're going to be hearing these terms a lot. Today, we will explore scientific conservation and indigenous perspectives as it relates to the escarpment and the waters that have shaped it. So let's meet the panelists. Charlene is co-chair of the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Network, an elder, Hereditary Council member, water walker, and climate reality leader from Nishiname. Charlene has dedicated her life to protecting the land and waters of the escarpment, including the full length of the Bruce Trail. She has raised awareness about the environment and environmental stewardship. Her journey and wisdom have been featured in several documentaries and celebrate Indigenous leadership and our shared responsibility to care for Mother Earth. We are honored to have you here with us today. Duncan is a lifelong scientist, environmental innovator, and proud Collingwood resident with a PhD in chemical physics and a career spanning nearly 3 decades at Imperial Oil and Exxon. Duncan helped pioneer global refinery and environmental research projects. Since retiring, he's turned his passion toward nature, hiking, paddling, and playing music around and across South Georgian Bay. He brings his scientific insight and local commitment to advancing the health of our region's watersheds as a director with the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust. So welcome, Duncan. And finally, Jim is president and CEO of Dobbin International. He brings over 46 years of global experience in spatial and conservation planning, spanning more than 100 countries. Jim is a pioneer in designing sustainable, resilient strategies for lands, coasts, and oceans. Today, he brings that deep expertise to our region through his leadership, not only related to the geospatial project he has been working on for the ECA, but also the work he has done for the aspiring Georgian Bay Geopark. Jim lives right here in Collingwood. Jim, welcome. Okay, bad joke, but let's get flowing with the questions. Get it? Okay. Jim, first question is for you, and feel free to come up over here because I know we've got a few slides to answer this. What are the key watersheds that define South Georgian Bay, and what are their unique attributes based on the geospatial planning project you recently completed with the ECA? Want to come on up?
Sure. Yeah. Good, thank you.
Simple
Very
arrows.
much, Martin.
There we go, first slide.
Oh, magic. Yeah, so I think I can describe that a little bit better through the series of slides that I've put together. And I'd just like to say that the South Georgian Bay Ecological Corridor Project was funded by the Greenbelt Foundation, and I was co-director with Jarvis Strong, We have a great team of people in my firm, Tatiana, Laura, and Jose Rafael. We have people in Bogota and Maputo working on this. They also work on the Geo Park on Silver Creek and did some work on the GBA as well. And we had advice from Corey Stinson and Mark Heaton, biologists, ecologists along the way. So we had a great team, and this is a fairly complex project, and it came up with a few basic highlights and insights to talk about today. I think last year I presented this map of the escarpment. Basically, the red boundary being the ECA project region to look for ecological corridors within that. The orange zone is actually the green belt or the Niagara escarpment biosphere region. And if you look at all this complexity of rivers going north, south, east, west, all the yellow areas are areas of natural scientific interest. They're scattered all over the landscape. They're not protected. They're of scientific interest. The green are forests. The blue on the landscape are wetlands. And so you can see that you have rivers coming right out of the escarpment going into South Georgian Bay. But this boundary is, I think, represents about 185,000 kilometers or hectares, and is all the waters within this territory drain into South Georgian Bay. So that's where we started with. And last year I said we were just beginning the project, and I said this is a complex area, and boy is it ever after we doing the work and going into detail. So I'll just show you a few things that have come up in our work. This represents to answer your question, Martin, the region represents 5 different watersheds. The shoreline, which extends from the top of the escarpment down to Georgian Bay, and we have the Beaver River outlet in beige, and we have the Big Head River in the pink color going through Meaford, and the Eugenia Lake and Beaver River in the southern part. The colors aren't that good here, yellow, and then the Mad River over to the east. Each of those watersheds have different characteristics, are all underlain by karst landscape. We've confirmed that, and but they all have different amount of forest cover, healthy forests. They have different, some areas have more wetlands than others. And it's this diversity that creates this incredible landscape that we live in. The Bruce Trail is shown here in purple. And it is really interesting that actually Castle Glen, you can see here, I think I can use this, Castle Glen, sits at the junction of 3 of the 5 watersheds. It's really critical because it's right there at the headwaters of 3 watersheds. And underneath, this is a schematic of the green areas represent areas of high biodiversity according to the model that we developed, and the blue corridors are some ideas of some connections that would connect these areas to allow animals to move more freely between these areas of high biodiversity. So that it's a way, the watersheds are a perfect way to organize your planning work. We're talking about an ecological corridor, so we should be talking about the ecosystem. So it's a regional project. It crosses Grey County, Grey Highlands, and Simcoe counties. It crosses the Wasaga Valley Conservation Authority and the Grey Sauble. And that's, the purpose is to look at it from an ecological, eco-regional point of view and not deal with administrative boundaries, because all these systems cross boundaries, administrative boundaries. So it's more of a design with nature, design with and plan with considering all these aspects. Another insight was the fact that when you look at satellite imagery of the region, we analyzed SORAS in this case. There's 60% of the land is in agriculture, and that's a massive amount. And so so that leaves 40% of the land for other things. So now with the 40%, assuming the agriculture stays, let's take away the steep slopes that are unbuildable. Let's take away the wetlands that are protected. Let's take away the protected areas. We're probably down to about 30%, 35% of the land is available for development. So it tells us two things. First, we got to really consider resilient and regenerative agriculture, better forms of agriculture. We got to think about planning and design and land use planning in better ways, more sensible ways to deal with this environment. Because we take away the cities too. I mean, you've got Hollywood and Thornbury. We're left with a very small area that's suitable for development. And then this was staggering. We developed a really comprehensive geospatial database of hundreds of layers, and we have the elevation of all the spots along the study project region, and we know where all the rivers are. So we just followed every river up to its source, and we said these are the source waters, the headwaters for all the rivers. And those blue dots represent the sources of every river and stream in this region. And then we say, well, let's do a density analysis of those sources. So you can see the darker areas are where we have great water recharge. These are fundamental to the life flow of life throughout this region. So we have, and just as a proxy, we use the Niagara escarpment and greenbelt boundary to say, well, that's the brow to the toe. Look at those areas. We can do a better job in this by putting it on a LiDAR, for example. But most of those areas are water recharge areas, are right on the escarpment face. And why is that? The slope is like this. When it rains, it just infiltrates. It's like a sponge. So the escarpment provides a great source of water, as well as the wetlands that sit above the escarpment. So we have to really think about how this whole system works. You can't do good planning if you don't understand what's there and how it's operating and how it works. So we got these, and I don't think that these source waters are protected. I don't think that these source waters are in any of the master plans for any of the towns and cities, and I'm not even sure that conservation authorities are using this technique to identify them and give them some sort of special protection. So that came out as a kind of a new insight, a big aha moment that we found. And then if you look at those water sources, just trace the source waters, they feed all the ANSIs. These areas of natural scientific interest, the yellow area. They feed the forests and they feed the wetlands. So the whole health of the system depends first on those sources. So I think there's a way to identify those source waters. I think that Corey Stinson suggested this idea where you have a drone and you look at in the late winter, you can see where the water is coming out. We've done it already this way. Of course, it could be confirmed and better figured out. And then we start to look at, of course, how these headwaters support every river, minor rivers, and other streams. So it's and also us. Like I haven't put us in here. Our wells, our drinking water, our recreation waters, this sort of thing. So they're really, really important. And I wanted to, this is one of the schematics of the ecological corridor, the green areas being ecological hotspots according to our model, and the blue are the corridors. And we have two kinds of corridors here. You can see these corridors running kind of across rivers and connecting these dark green areas to our highest areas, highest biodiversity, and the importance of connecting these. And you can also see Castle Glen sitting at the junction of high biodiversity area and if we put source waters on there, you'll see all the source waters are right there. Plus these rivers that flow into Collingwood, Silver Creek and what is this, Black Ash Creek and Collingwood. So, you know, if you think of the potential of that being developed, you know, the town of Blue Mountain will get tax revenue, sure, but Collingwood's going to get nothing but bad water or stop water. So there's a real incentive for Collingwood to have a big say into this, what happens here. But then the other thing we've emphasized, we've added, because we know from, especially talking to Corey and Mark Heaton, that there's such high levels of biodiversity along the rivers that really riparian corridors are equally important to whatever we've identified here. So, you know, say 30-meter buffers of vegetative buffers along every river stream in this region would be of huge benefit to biodiversity, to water quality, to everything else. And that's I mentioned that because I had a pretty interesting experience. I worked a lot in Malawi for World Bank and CETA project. And I worked with Dr. John Wilson, who was educated in the UK and grew up and lived in Malawi. And he told me, because we were going around in 4x4s looking, and all the rivers were dried up, and the villages were suffering. And women, you could see 10, 15 women with buckets on their heads to go get water 4 or 5 miles away and then back. And he said, you know, in 1984, every river flowed year-round into Lake Nyasa. You know what happened. So I was there in 1994, and John, that was 10 years. So, and it wasn't the case. So at that 1984, the women could get water right there in their village, in their town. The rivers and streams all had canopy over the rivers, so they flowed year round. The Impasa salmon, freshwater salmon, flowed up and down the rivers. They had protein, and the rivers were healthy. They weren't so. What happened is that the British had a rule, 2-chain rule, 133 feet on either side of the riverbank. You had to have full vegetated cover, and the tobacco plantations and everything could be behind them. Well, after the British were thrown out, within a couple of years, all the deputy ministers and ministers had tobacco plantations, of course, and they said, what are all those trees doing there? Let's extend our fields to the edge of the riverbanks. And they did, in a matter of a couple of years. First rain, all the silt went into the rivers, locked up the rivers, no shade, and you had Impasa salmon couldn't flow up the rivers. The women had to walk, as I said, 4 to 6 hours every day to get water uphill. So they go up the river to where the vegetation still covered over the stream. But it's just dramatic, the impact on that environment. And I think that really struck me as being such an important aspect of all our land planning work. You know, we really need to get those vegetative buffer strips along every river and stream, and you know, really focus on that. And I'm not sure who's doing it. I know Blue Mountain Watershed Trust has done a lot of work in this area, and I think that's fantastic. And we really need to continue and bring that to the attention of planners. So I wanted to show you what happened with technology. In the early 70s, I worked at Richard Strong, Stephen Moorhead Landscape Architects, and I was a landscape architect. And in the office was this project, Castle Glen. My buddies were doing a master plan for Castle Glen. I was working on Phantom 5 in Rosemore National Park in the CN Tower Master Plan, so I had nothing to do with it, to make it clear. And I saw it was there, and I looked over at them, what they were doing, and just thinking, 1950s, they were using 1959, 60s topographic sheets. So one inch on the topo sheet was equivalent to, say, 50,000 inches on the ground. The slope interval was more like 10 feet or 20 feet. So you can start to design golf courses and housing areas because it looks pretty flat. And so let's go to 3 years ago, I moved back from the US to Collingwood, and Bruce took me for a hike on the property. And I said, Bruce, I was worried because the maps that I saw recently, not 1970, but later versions, showed this landscape at 15%, it's not so bad, for development. So we went down and started hiking around, and I noticed that within 100 feet, that landscape did this. So any mapping never took into account the details like that. So it was like an accordion. And so we've gotten LiDAR through our work on the geopark. And we did a slope analysis just last week, because I've always been curious what would happen. So all the red on this map of passive blend shows areas that are greater than 15% slope. So when you look at that, you can't build there. You can't build here. And you can't surgically go in here. You have to flatten this whole area to build there. You can't build here, and there's golf courses, all sorts of things planned. So it just shows how when we can use some of the most advanced, newest technologies, we can really start to understand what's there and what's going on and make better decisions. They didn't have this available to them in the 70s and the 80s and other master plans. So I just want to end on saying here are a few insights that we've gained through the project. It's an amazing project, it's a complex project, and we just hope that we can get better planning, better management, and have an emphasis on water sources, headwaters. The great work of Andrew and the Ontario Headwater Institute is amazing too. So we got to really mobilize and focus on waters and biodiversity. They're all linked. Thank you.
That was a masterclass in watershed management and mapping that you could go to any university around the world and go, wow, that's world class. So thank you very much, Jim. One fun story with Jim, I took him up to Duncan Highlands. We went for a hike around the area over there. We have this beautiful art and tree trail. Renee in the back actually has one of our art installations on there. And we're walking around, and I'm like, so Jim, tell me all about this area. We were out there for like an hour and a half. It was a master class in itself. One of the things that I continue to remember, and I share with groups that I take out on the trail, is who's hiked the Bruce Trail? Any part of it? All right, good. Okay, so we're all talking the same language. When you hike along there, you see all these cracks, right, that go down. It's all the stone dolomite. It's cracking away, water erosion over centuries and centuries has opened these beautiful crevasses and defined the escarpment. And Jim's like, those are the source waters. I'm like, what do you mean? That is where the water goes down into the ground and refills all the aquifers. So, Stainer, Nottawa, they're all on the aquifer. They all have wells. They do not have major pipelines going in there. As Stainer grows, it's got to have a higher demand on the aquifer. That's just simple math. If we go off and we destroy the source waters on the escarpment, the communities like Stainer and Nottawa are going to see a decline in their waters. So this is why this mapping is so important. There's such an interconnected series of elements within the landscape that help provide water for the communities that we all live in. And I continue to share that with people. And I remember, whenever I mention that, they're like, oh, now I have a completely different appreciation for these cracks in the escarpment and what kind of an important role they play for us. So, yes?
Just a question. I know you're probably going to have questions at the end for
Yes.
all three speakers, but Jim's got his slides up there. Is it possible to just flip back, and I'd like to ask a question on one of those slides?
For sure. Is it okay if we do it at the end? Because I'll have the presentation up.
You'll be able to go back and.
Yeah, I'll be able to go back. So remember the question. Okay? Do you remember the question? Because we're going to go back to it
Oh, I'll
afterwards.
remember.
Awesome. All right. Okay, let's get rolling with our next question. And this one's probably a bit more for you, Duncan. What efforts have been done to protect and rewild these watersheds recently? And in particular, what has the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust done?
I guess I should get up there.
It's up to you. I can move the slides for you, whatever's easiest.
What do you guys want?
Yeah, come on up. Then watch up at the podium.
I've got a semi-new right hip here. Okay, you heard I'm Duncan Bristow. I'm a board member with the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust. I've been, I guess, with that group of 14 years or so. We retired and moved up here about 16 years ago. And our mission of the trust is to protect and enhance the Blue Mountains watershed ecosystem through direct action, advocacy, and education. And the trust has been around for almost 30 years now, actually, and has been involved in, the ECA has been more thinking globally, we've been definitely dealing with the local issues is where we've been focusing. And our history, as I'll mention, kind of parallels that of the Silver Creek wetlands. On this map here, I've shown our map basically of the watersheds in this region. It's a little different from Jim's. It's an older map basically that we had made up. The biggest watershed, of course, is the Beaver River one here, and the Little Beaver up at the top. Those maroon ones are what we call lake fringe, so they don't drain into the rivers themselves, but they drain obviously out into the bay here. Then we've got Indian Brook coming down this way, and we've got the one that I'll be talking about in more detail in a few minutes, the Silver Creek watershed, which starts up at Lake of the Clouds here. That's a man-made lake, by the way, but it always flowed down. Black ash is fortunately black, and we have a pretty pretty river here, and the eastern end of the areas we look at is Bateau Creek here. And then there's more lake fringe. So, oh, perfect, thank you. So we're incredibly fortunate to have what we call the Silver Creek wetlands, which I pointed out there, on the shores of the bay, right within Collingwood. It's a very, very rare wetland where the limestone slopes down towards the bay, and it's one of the very few wetlands that's left in the southern shores of Georgian Bay. For a number of endangered species, there's spotted turtles, for instance, in that area. We have pictures of them, and we employed Jackie Litzkus, professor from Laurentian University, to map out the home of the spotted turtle in that area. It was designated a provincially significant wetland in 1985 by the NDCA. Unfortunately, the CAs no longer have natural heritage feature influences. They're only allowed to look at natural hazards. That's a different issue relative to the government. But it was protected by the town in 1988. They passed an edict to protect the Silver Creek wetlands. And the trust, which was formed, I guess, in '93, we've also spent a great deal of our time and effort protecting the wetlands. One of the first major threats to the Silver Creek wetlands was in 2001 when a golf course was proposed right on top of the wetlands, basically. And we successfully, with the town and so on, got that canceled by 2002. And my understanding is they actually went down to the Niagara area and built their golf course down there instead. So we're involved in numerous fights over the years. If I call them fights, but basically we're challenging developers with respect to their buffers and how close they are to the wetlands in various locations. A couple here in town that we've been involved with, Bridgewater, which is kind of between Princeton Shores and Bartlett there, and the 26. We got involved in that in 2007, and we were a special participant to those OMB hearings, and we were able to ensure that some buffers were adequately placed between the Silver Creek wetlands and that development. Originally it was 350 units, and that was set in the minutes of settlement, and then in 2018 they said, no, we want to have 650. Well, unfortunately the OLT, or maybe it was the Yellow Pad in 2018, said, yeah, that's okay, you can have that many, and yeah, we didn't win that. And because we said the minutes of settlement were relative to the number agreed to at that time. But that's what happened. So in my next slide, I'll talk a little bit about, well, it went sideways on me. Okay, what happened, more recent things we've been involved in. These are kind of backwards here, actually. So I'm going to talk about the picture at the bottom. Unless they have them the other way around. No, they look like that. Yeah, the picture at the bottom is Clearview County Road 2627, which comes straight down the escarpment. And the plan was to close the 91, and that road would then become part of that quarry up at the top there. And then all the traffic that would have used to go around 91 would now come down a winterized road 2627. Okay. Now we had one of our members, George Powell, and an environmental lawyer working on this for number of years actually, and we're able to convince the powers that be that the environmental schedule that must be met with such a big change in going from the summer to a winter to a year-round road straight through wetlands and so on, and streams pass down there, that it had to be a Schedule C, which was much, much more involved. And Clearview and their proponents on the other side were not willing to do that. They'd have to look at alternative routes and so on. And so eventually it got canceled. And it was a big, big win for the neighbors who were opposed to it and for the Watershed Trust, who fought to keep it as a summer road only and not endanger the escarpment, because it literally comes straight down. They'd have to change the slopes. They'd have to do quite a lot of damage in reality. The next one is actually the top picture, but it is the bottom writing. We were involved as, and we are right now actually, involved as a party to an OLT that stands for Ontario Land Tribunal proceedings on a place called Honeywood Trails. There's actually two sections, Honeywood Trails West, which has already been approved, and Honeywood Trails East. And it's the Honeywood Trails East area that we're concerned about. And in this picture, this is simply a picture of the area that these developments are planned for. It's on, beside Silver Creek, and it floods. It floods all the time. So, you know, it's a ridiculous place to plan a development such as that. And not only does it flood, there are provincially significant wetlands, some of the Silver Creek wetlands in the immediate vicinity of these developments. So if we go to my final slide here, it's going to get very local now relative to thinking globally. So if you look at this picture, I don't know if I can point this out easily. Maybe I should just go over here. All right. This overall figure is from the town's official plan, okay? The one in the background, basically, and it's showing the wetlands, all right? So, and this is the official plan from 2014, which was the one that was in effect when this plan for the development was being voted on. So that's the one we have to look at. The yellow bits are provincially significant wetlands. So basically, this is the Silver Creek wetland complex. You see the yellow bit there? So all of these yellow pieces, and those aren't part of Silver Creek, but they're also PSWs over there. They're all part of the Silver Creek wetlands. And if you look at these two little pieces here, those, I've blown that section up and put it as an inset here, okay? So the development for Honeywood Trails West is over here, kind of next to Forest Drive and Silver Creek Drive over there. And the Honeywood Trails East is planned for right in the middle of this, right in between the two pieces of PSW. The Georgian Trail runs along here, and then of course Highway 26 is there. They were not permitted access from Silver Glen. Those residents didn't want them coming through their property. So the only way they can access this property is by building a bridge right over Silver Creek, right here. And now if you look at this is the developer's diagram here. They've got the Honeywood Trails West. This has already been effectively approved, of course, with various caveats. But this is what they want to build, okay? Butting up against Silver Glen there with the trail right here, Georgian Trail, and then they're going to install this road connecting the two parts of their development. And if you look at this hashed area, kind of green hashed area, that's PSW. That's provincially significant wetland. Collingwood's official plan very specifically says there will be a minimum of 30 meters between any natural heritage features, such as the PSW, and any development. And you alluded to that, Jim, when you were speaking. 30 meters is a minimum. The town of Blue Mountains, in their new official plan, it says 120 meters. 120 meters. Now, it might be hard to fight that in every case, but it's, you know, directionally, 30 meters, it says in our official plan, is a minimum, an absolute minimum. These black lines are 50 meters, okay? I took them from the scale, from the developer's own scale. If you look at these black lines, there's maybe 10 meters between the PSW and the edge of that development. And in fact, if you were to put 30-meter lines from either side of the PSW, there wouldn't be any room whatsoever to stick a development. So we're involved in that fight right now. It's not easy. Our position on the OLT is we're really only allowed to speak about natural hazards. We're pushing for a two-dimensional hydrological model, which will show the flooding. The one-dimensional hydrological model used by the developer, it favors their development, but it's nowhere near as good as a two-dimensional model. So we're pushing to have the two-dimensional model accepted as the de facto, and even the NPCA says, yes, it's much better. We have to really get them more on our side, though, to push for it, because they didn't demand it in the Westlands, and so they're being questioned, well, why do you need it in these lands? So that's kind of the position we're in with respect to that thing.
That's awesome, Duncan.
So
thank you.
We're really in the weeds here.
Thank you, Duncan, for everything that you and the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust do to actually protect these watersheds. One of the things that really excites me with the Escarpment Corridor Alliance is that we can work with different partners, bring in some of the science that Jim provides, and then match it up with existing work already happening here so we can get even more effort going on around protecting core watershed areas through the efforts of the Blue Mountain Watershed Trust. So thank you again. I mentioned the word alliance. working with the Indigenous community is equally important for us. And what really excites me about today's breakout session is we've seen a lot of maps, a lot of data right now. There is a whole other story to these watersheds. And that's why I'm really excited to have Charlene here. And the question for you is, what is the importance of these watersheds to the Indigenous community? What makes them so unique? And are there any important stories to share from the two-eye seeing perspective? And feel free to talk from there, or stand up, walk around. All right.
Oh,
There you go.
that's the best I can do. Because I'm not technical. Ani Kenawea. I'm saying hello, everyone. Hello. So, because I've walked the Bruce Trail from Niagara Falls, New York, all the way up to Tobermory, and I could see the infringement and the damage all the way along the trail, and it broke my heart, right? So when you see this kind of damage, and what can we do to protect all of it? And it's not First Nations job anymore, it's everybody's job. When you go out and you look, like here, I'm just looking out there and I can see a bit of erosion on that hill. So that tells me they've taken too many trees down, right? So if they left the trees there, that bit of mud won't be coming down. So you have to worry about things, right? And then Phragmites, which is a very invasive species, and it's infringing on all these wetlands, our swamps, everything, and it's making it really hard for all those little critters that are in the swamps that live there. They can't get through anymore because that Phragmites is strong and the roots are everything just tangles that they can't get through. So they're not going to be able to survive in that environment if Phragmites is out there in the wetlands, right? So I feel that it's everybody's job to go out, if you can, to try to remove them. And, you have to get the root system and dig them out that way before the top blooms, right? You want to get the Phragmites out before that flowers and the seeds all go out and spread it some more. So that's one of the jobs I think we can do as humans, right? It's our job to take care of this earth that we're living on. And because I'm a water walker and I've been able to do ceremony just on my own, like I went out to the Pacific Ocean and I was able to sing a song to the water. I was just out at the East Coast and I was able to sing to the water every day. But when we did the water walk, we stopped at all water that was moving. And we put our tobacco down and we said a prayer. But it's not just us. You can go out there because this earth knows that you're walking on it. The earth knows each and every one of you people. They know your footsteps. The earth knows they're here. And who's going to help me survive? So when you go outside and you're just, having your little walk, walking your dog and everything, just think about those footsteps that you're doing. And when you're walking on the earth, walk softly and walk with pure joy. Because the earth will say, hey, there's something. They're just really happy to be out here. And that'll make the earth happy. That's my spiritual side of why I do these things. As Indigenous people, we've known that we've been connected to everything. I saw a mama bear and 2 cubs yesterday, and I stopped my car and put the window down, and I speak into language to say hello. Hello, my brothers and sisters, because in our culture, the bears are our brothers. Bears are the closest to human beings. If you saw a bear, like when a hunter, you don't want to see that, but when you see a hunter and he hangs them up, it looks like a human being hanging there. that's how close we are related to bears. You know, so we shouldn't worry about bears coming around because we're infringing on their territory, right? And bears, like, they eat in the swamp areas, there's food there. You know, I'm otter clan, my otters wanna be in a nice, clear stream. Trees around the streams, try to keep the invasive species out of the areas. One maple tree that is very invasive because it came to Canada with a disease, and that's the Norway maple. You know those red maple trees that are in your front yard? I would get rid of them if I were you, because it's affecting the rest of the maple trees that are natural to this land. So, you know, when I was walking on the trail and seeing all the damage, and we carried filters and everything because we wanted to drink water, but we couldn't. We couldn't drink water until we got up to this area, closer to this area, without using the filters, right? So that's how much damage is in the southern part from here going south. And when you're walking the trail and you see different things that can help you, like, because I gather plants and I make medicines too, I look at everything. Like, it took us 35 days, and that was going anywhere from 14 kilometers to 25 kilometers a day. But I would like to go along the trail slower, just to look at everything that's growing. How much damage will this plant survive, this area, this kind of thing, right? So I worry about all those things. And in my 40s, I didn't give a rat's ass about that sort of thing. But when I moved back home, you know, when I saw where I lived, I look out I have my bay window looking out to the lake, so I can see the bluff and I can see Hay Island. I go out my front door and I can see another bluff. So I get to greet the sunshine and whatever is out there each day. So if we protect all these wetlands, all the moving water, the animals are going to survive. We're going to have more birds singing to you in the morning when you wake up. Because, hey, there's a human taking care of something. That's how connected we are. And beginning of creation, we were all connected to all of it. Every nation was connected to nature. And we keep forgetting those things. So I have on my, that's my clan, I'm Otter Clan. And on my Echoenzi side, I'm Bear Clan. But I think that's kind of why I really care for the water. But I have all the colors of all the people. So the black people are the music keepers. They take care of all the music in the world. They make really good music, right? It's awesome. The best music you'll ever hear, right? The red people, that's us. Our job is to take care of this earth and help everybody else take care of this earth. Oh, they were supposed to take care of the spiritual side of life. And the spiritual side of life is taking care of the earth. It's taking care of everything. So there's a lot that have forgotten their job, but when I come here and I see all of you, and I'm blessed that, and you're blessed that you're concerned, you care, that's the best part, right? And then the yellow people, they know the knowledge of all kinds of things that we don't even think of sometimes, right? And they recorded so much. They had scrolls, and different things to keep their knowledge in a storage facility or things like that. My people, we never wrote anything down. Like, I just came with my purse. Right? I'm on a hereditary council, and it's all oral knowledge, oral questions, oral everything, and everything is passed down orally. Like all our stories that you read them down, but is it what everybody else thinks? Like, you know, when we get in a lodge and everybody gets to talk, and somebody wants to write a book, but then they're saying, but this is how my parents did it, or this is how my parents did it. So our knowledge isn't written down in books exactly like an encyclopedia. And all these legends and tales you see that are ours, those are stories that we believe connects us to the earth. Like Bigfoot, giants, trees moving. We have stories about all that because 1,000 years ago, those things were happening on this earth. So when we see everything being developed, because coming here, I came all the back roads and I'm looking at all these big houses. Like, is that really necessary to live in a 5-bedroom home? When I was born, I was put in a shoebox. I was just little, but I don't feel little anymore. I feel big because I can use my voice. And a lot of times I don't need a microphone because I want people to hear what I have to say. Because to me, it's important. If I can pass something on, get somebody else to care about what's out there. Just remember when you're out there, you're taking your steps. You're saying, hey, there's somebody just walking and enjoying the day. So this is why I joined the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere. And I have indigenous eyes, but then to me, there's all these other eyes. And I think that's how things are gonna work out for us, is how we look at things and look at your neighbor and say, well, what do you think about this? Because that's another set of your eyes, right? So we're doing that. It's up to us to communicate how we see this earth living. How are we living on it? Because water is life. If we didn't have water, if we didn't have the trees, this earth, we wouldn't be here, but the earth would still be here. So if we can keep it for ourselves to enjoy, protect it for ourselves to enjoy, I think we'll survive as a human species. And you see some damage, just think about I would go to MPs and say, hey, what's going on? Because it's up to us, right? Because we're gonna go see those people and they're only gonna talk because they're paid by corporations. But if we, the ordinary people, go to all our MPs, send out a letter, because a Bill C5, it's just gonna rip this land apart. And it's up to us to protect it. So when you go home, write a letter. Let those MPs know that you care about this, especially this corridor. It's just the most beautiful thing. Like, we're blessed to be able to live here like this. Because when I go down to, say, the Niagara Falls Casino, and I'm not a good gambler, but I drive down there and I'm looking at all this garden, and I'm thinking, like, I've walked all along that whole thing. And it's like, how amazing is that you can do that? I feel still blessed that I'm healthy enough, because I'm gonna be 75 next month. So I'm excited about what else can I do? But walking the whole escarpment and seeing how the development has done damage unnecessarily. And I'm a golfer, but I know the damage that golfers, or that the golf courses do to the land, and all the sprays they put on there, you know, so we have to think about all those things. Like, what do we really want to do? So, I don't know how long I have. Once I get on a roll, though.
Do you want to do some questions?
Yeah, if anybody wants to ask me anything, like, and don't be shy. That guy at the back first.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you very much. It's wonderful. I'm wondering how this great organization integrates with younger people. So, you know, this is about the future. And this audience will leave. Some people in the audience will do something more than others. But when I think of kids, younger people, and it's great to see them here, Is this group going into the schools?
Well, I don't know about this group, but at home, we're reviving the knowledge and putting it in books and putting it into the schools. That's how we're starting. Like, there's only maybe 4 books right now, talking about legends, water, the trees. We have the most beautiful park at home. The kids go down there and they go on hikes, and we have our, there's a hiker here that takes all the kids out and they get to explore. We know medicines that the kids could learn. Like me, I don't have, I'm not on any medication. I use all the medicines that I see growing out there. And the kids are really, they want to learn. Like if you have your grandchildren, especially if they have questions, you answer those questions. Because they want to know and they're concerned. You know, and then there's an age where they come where they don't even want to talk to grandma. And you all go through that. But then as they get a little older, they're going to start asking questions again. So there's just that one age in, you know, where they don't care. But it's like, that's part of the human being, right? So it's up to us to teach the youth, ask them to come with you to any of these workshops or resources at the library. There's all kinds of things out there that we can learn, and we can help the young people.
Thank you, Charlene. Just
Yes.
as a follow-up in terms of what the ECA is doing, so you'll see some kids from the forest school that are here.
Yeah.
We've reached out to all of the high schools, elementary schools. In fact, there's a panel right now going on talking about different groups that are engaging with youth. Collingwood Collective is just one of them. We found it a little challenging with high schools, to be quite honest, because they don't, unless they have a curriculum that's an active part of, that integrates with either indigenous learnings or with getting back into nature, it falls on empty ears. It's not part of the curriculum, therefore we do not do it. We have great news. We've partnered with CCI, the South Georgian Bay Innovation Fund, to actually do a Trail Works program with their high school students that gets kids out into different areas around here working on trails. So again, connecting with the earth and spending time out there. And I've been part of those programs. They forget about their phones. They pick up rakes and shovels and they're getting dirty and they have smiles on their face and they're reconnecting with themselves and with nature. So these things do work. It is not easy getting it done, but I think your suggestions are absolutely critical for us to remember.
Yeah, just wondering if you could elaborate on the damage to the Bruce Trail that you find from your experiences. Like, have you noticed things with agriculture or industry or?
Well, industry especially, just because the Bruce Trail corridor is not natural anymore on the southern part of it. And that's because industry is infringing on that area. And they just want more and more and more of it, right? And that's with the gravel pits. They want the escarpment because of the limestone. You know, and we really have to protect that. Down in Milton, I saw where they just cut out a whole section and put a bridge on. Something like that shouldn't be allowed. They shouldn't be allowed to take out a road that goes on the escarpment because they want that limestone. So it's up to us. You know what, when I see stop nuclear waste, I love those signs. Stop the gravel pits from, they put those on your lawn. That just causes awareness. People are gonna pay attention more. Like, I think if there's any way that we as humans can help the earth, show how much we care, that's just a footstep in the right direction. Yes.
Just a question, as through indigenous stories and what's happening right now, and Duncan was presenting is the water that we are talking about, as everything else, depends on water. Water is a prime source of life. do you know if someone from all these groups is working on legal rights of the water, where somebody represents the water as a corporation has a rights?
As an entity.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we working on it in the area here? Because we have heard stories in Quebec. I think there is a river that has a right. Around the world, there are rivers, but our watershed, is there something that we can all together work towards, that we put the watershed as that the watershed has the right? Not the big water, because the water is underneath. How do you do that? Who has the rights under the ground? It's so vital. Yes. This is what's happening. Yeah, I apologize. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
They come and they say, OLT, no, you don't, you can do this, 30 meters, 100 meters. I have, as a swamp, I have the right. It's water.
Yes, yes.
There, done.
And I think it's,
Bill of Rights.
We've
Yeah.
certainly discussed it at the trust, based
But we
on
need-
the Quebec situation.
Why, yeah, it's all over the world.
Yeah.
so,
Where are we? Sorry.
Sorry,
I mean, look,
we
I can't
haven't
really-
pursued, I mean, it's a much bigger picture, obviously, but yes, directionally, that would be.
That what we can work on all together, like it would be super. So I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a geologist, a scientist or anything, but feel it. We need water to live.
And to some extent, describing, for instance, significant wetlands as protected areas is along those lines. If we could only get everybody involved and maintain our official plan regulations, right? If we maintain those, we would be effectively protecting those things, but we're not maintaining them.
All those regulations are just they change tomorrow, they will change.
Could you just
Charlene?
repeat the question so we know what we're talking
Yeah,
about
for sure.
right
So the
now?
question was, has there been any effort been done to assign rights to waters, right? If water is so important, shouldn't it have rights like humans have rights, right? And there are examples around the world, in fact in Canada, where there are rivers that have, for example, been given rights. I think in the Indigenous teachings, rivers have
yeah,
those rights. Do you want to comment on that a little bit? Because the history is there.
yeah. So, because we consider water as life, but we consider the whole earth as life. So that water has the right to flow naturally without trees removed from the sides of it, just so that a boat can get through there, right? Let that stay natural. So the waters have rights. I think the animals have rights. That should be a consideration too. And just the air, because we consider all of this life itself. So all of nature has rights, and it's up to us to make sure those rights are taken care of. And that's part of that letter I was telling you to send to your MPs, to say, like, this water has the right to flow here without any disturbance, without any chemicals being built close to it. You know, so that water has rights in that manner, right? And we want to protect that. I'm sure,
Go ahead.
I'm sure the MPs have grandchildren that want to go swimming in clean water. You know, and when they get these positions, they forget it. Like, you have kids, you have grandchildren. They need to swim in water and play, and catch crayfish and eat backwards.
Sorry, I just looked up, it's called the Magpie River, a different name, of course. It's in eastern Quebec in indigenous lands. It was given 9 specific rights.
Yes.
Very cool. Just one more comment, Charlene, if I may, about your comment around writing to the MPs. You heard Bruce's challenge to us all earlier on today. You are going to be getting information as a follow-up to go, how do you reach the MP, how do you reach the MPP, so that you can all reach out and send the message. numbers count. So if there's one takeaway from today, right, one action, I ask you to watch for that email and write to your MP and write to your MVP to express how you feel about nature and conservation of the corridors and of course water.
Especially NPP, because we have wonderful wetland protection. 7 years ago, you talk about setbacks. I could get setbacks from water courses. That's been completely defeated now. We have no protection for our water.
You have to be engaged and you have to talk to your local representatives. Because they're the ones who are influencing the OLT. They're more faster, you see. And the OLT has the final decision. No matter what your local council decides, they can reject something. And we've had many cases recently where a developer has gone to the OLT before there was even a vote. And the OLT has agreed with it. So the council didn't even get to vote on it.
So they put the map and then that generated.
I want to make sure we get Bob's question here too.
I think my question might be for Duncan, that's okay. It ties into your comments about the aquifers. So the Alliston aquifer, is it contingent with Stainer and Nalavasaga and the water that's being pumped out of there?
The aquifer, yeah, I don't honestly know exactly how they tie together. I know in Ottawa itself, there's a pretty big development there. It's huge. But they're going to go to wells, rather than trying to pipe, tie into the pipe down from Collingwood. They're actually in the wells. And then they say they have enough water to supply that. But in terms of exactly how they're interconnected, I don't know that. I don't know any other trust members here do.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Charlene. And you said some words that were very powerful to me. I just put up a link at the bottom of our postcard. You said that Bill 5 ripped this land apart. Those are your exact words. Bill 5, of course, allows development to waive an environmental assessment. And it also, to some degree, and reading between the lines here, can ignore First Nations views on what's happening in order to speed the development process. So I just wanted to thank you for using the words Bill 5 could rip this land apart and encourage everybody in the room to read what you meant by that.
Bill 20 is the one that lost the land, right? Bill 5 is going to be the one that loses all your species of
Lots of bills here to think about. You had a question
Yeah,
during the presentation. Do you mind if we just do that?
And I do have a question. I do have a quick question. The Norway maple and the Phragmites. However, that's the tip of the iceberg. You have a platform now, you have the majority growth. We have things like European water, we have water soldiers, we have the Rossi buckthorn. Those species are going to, well, they already have moved into the water. So we have an opportunity to tell people about invasive species. Look those ones up, Rossi buckthorn, European water bugs, and water soldiers. They're innately in them. It's maple.
And a question about the map.
Yeah, so the water design
Yeah, which one was it?
the one that water sources with the blue dots. Yeah, so it's really important. So what you said, all these, you can actually, I love that map. That's a great.
It was a shock to us. We said, let's follow the rivers up and find where it's
May I have a copy of that? So
We're gonna get this out
anyway,
onto our
what
website.
These are, it's not because of these turbines. First, been here 100 years, 100 million years. What it was is if you start looking here at what you have, look at these blue dots. That's the Sigmundtha moraine. This is the Gibraltar moraine. This is the Bank moraine. And there's a little moraines in here that aren't named. You're coming up against the escarpment. Those moraines are glacial till that came in the last ice age 20,000 years ago. It started to melt. 14,000 years ago, we have these moraines. It's porous, real glacier till. And those are the recharge areas. Castle Glen sitting in all that, that's the last place that you should develop because that's the recharge areas for all those great moraines. That's what keeps your water clean. Oak Ridges moraine, Laurel moraine, they filter that water. You have wonderful waters here in the Gibraltar and the Sigmundtha moraines. Is there anybody that has studied the moraine, these two moraines in this area? Because I'd really like to work with you.
Supposedly there are definitely somebody was working on all these waters, but somehow the moon is from the
There's got to be a local group that has to work to protect these moraines, but it's so important.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it just shows what you're saying is the foundation is geology and the geomorphology, and most planners don't even think about that. That's too complicated. And this is really interesting, and I'd love to be able to put these blue dots and the rivers and the wetlands and the Andes and the forests on top of the LiDAR. The LiDAR, like I showed you for Castle Glen, for the whole region. And then we'll see those patterns and
Look at this, this is the Beaver Valley, this is the Beaver River, comes down here, up here. This is where I grew up, Bulls Hill, right at the top of the river, and it's all karst topography, so water seeps right in. All those chemicals you're putting on the soil seeps into the water, and those are the things you've got to protect.
and in fact, we checked the official document says this is maybe karst. But we worked with some geologists on the geopark, and they said, no, this is all karst because when you take the trees away, all those sinkholes and all those features show up. So you're absolutely right. It's a whole karst landscape.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. We have a very short amount of time for lunch, so I want to make sure people can get out. If there are people that have specific questions, please hang back. Bob, if you want to talk some more about moraines and making sure we've got people looking at glacial till and stuff like that, please connect with me afterwards so we can cover that off. I did want to say thank you to Charlene for all of your wisdom.
Go Jays, go!
That's awesome. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy lunch.